Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni, and I am an emotion code, body code, and belief code practitioner. And I also use alignment coaching in the work that I do to help people with chronic pain, chronic illnesses, or unexplained medical conditions to heal or reduce the symptoms. So I believe in natural healing, and this podcast is really here to support this message. So let me tell you, today I have with me Karen Docherty. Karen, welcome. So lovely to have you with me.
Nice to be here too.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's get started. Tell us something about you.
So, I am a psychic medium, spirit medium, and work predominantly helping people to either come to terms with grief and loss of loved ones, but also with guidance for their own life, teaching them about their own power, their own soul, their higher self, in order to also bring healing. Obviously, the purpose of mediumship is to heal, and whatever level that may be needed at that point in time. So that's what I spend my life doing full time, and I absolutely adore it. I'm very blessed.
It sounds amazing, and also sounds like exactly the kind of conversation that I'm having with my clients, and maybe the bit that is missing for me for my conversation is really about this. Maybe your soul plan and what is the thing that you came here to do, what it is that you came here to achieve, and helping people see that this is really just something that there is a message here. It's not something that they're supposed to get stuck with. um,
Mm-hmm.
so tell us a little bit how do you how do you see all of this? How are these conversations happening with your clients?
Well, I think you're right in the fact that people do seem to get kind of stuck in their own, I suppose, their own exploration of what they're supposed to do. I think most people now, or a lot of people now, are more aware that, we're not just here to, work 9 to 5. We're not just here to kind of get by in life. We're really here to explore and discover ourselves first and foremost, which obviously promotes better relationships, better lifestyle. It just helps us empower us first and foremost. So
Mm.
I do think a lot of people are looking for that now, and they're more aware of it thanks to people talking about it, like this podcast. More people can tune into these kind of things, and they do want, I feel anyway, with people that I meet, they do want to try to better that or be more in tune with that and try to understand it. So for me, it's probably more about helping people understand that they are spirit in human form. And if they can understand that and know that there is a connection to the divine source all of the time, no matter, what you call that. Some people are more religious with it, other people it's just a faith or a belief. But whatever way you address that or give that term to it, it's the same power. It comes from within. It's the higher self. And really, by promoting, people to look at that and empower that and embrace that, it really moves people on in life. And I find, even through my mediumship work, meaning my connection to spirit, loved ones, bringing proof that they're still here and that they can still communicate. Even aside of that, a lot of what I do really, I think makes differences to people's lives, and other mediums are the same. I think you can speak to any medium and they will say that, where they feel it's more about, like you said, the life plan. What is it we're here to do? The other thing I would say is, not to get stuck on that question, because I think that people do think that they have to be in one lane. There's a purpose that I'm here. What is it? What, I can't find it. And then they get themselves all, worked up about that, when really the biggest purpose is to evolve. It's to evolve your soul. It's to understand, unconditional love. It's to understand your own power. So there doesn't really need to be like a one thing that you need to achieve while you're here. It's just about that ever evolving side of things.
Mm. I totally agree. I meet so many people that feel very, yeah, very scared that they're getting older and they haven't found that purpose and they don't know what they're here to do. And I agree. Yes, evolving and is the direction that we want to go. And it's really, for me, it's really about, it's not so much about what is your purpose and making sure that you're meeting it, but it really is about seeing, are you aligning with your powers, or are you shying away from them? Are
Mhm.
you kind of on that path of evolving, or are you, compromising with your life, and you're operating from fears, and in a job that you don't like, in a relationship that is not good for you, and stuff like that. And for me, I see that, yeah, when we are out of alignment, that's when
Yeah.
chronic conditions come.
Yeah,
um,
and I think a lot of people are out of alignment, not even through their own fault. It's sometimes conditional, environmental. It could be the way they've been raised. It could be problems within their relationships, problems because of other events that have happened. And I think sometimes people forget in that moment that they are strong, that they can walk forward and they can find this other power that they've got. And it's not easy. I think there's a lot of judgment in this world at times. I think people forget, that not everybody gets to walk in the same shoes as you. There are people out there that maybe don't actually or have never been taught that there's something else. So I think that if you can be as non-judgmental as possible and just understand more that everyone has a different path and we all kind of come to that discovery ourselves. I think it is a very personal part of our journey when we suddenly discover that there might be another way, or there is something else that we can align with to make our own lives better. But it takes strength, it does take strength.
I totally agree. Totally agree. And I was having a conversation yesterday with someone, and the conversation really was about her healing journey, and that, stepping back into, old patterns, and we had that conversation that actually the choice to heal is very much similar to the choice to go on a diet, or get off an addiction, because you need to make the decision that you want to do this, and then you need to then you need to trust the change, and change is scary for people. So just by bringing in compassion and being aware that you are on a journey, that's really the only thing that she could really be doing for herself. So
And
it's
not being hard on herself. I think this is the other thing. We tend to look at other people and say, well, why am I not doing that, or why can't I reach that point? And really every individual is different. And even if you take it back to the mediumship side of things, for me, every medium is different. We all communicate differently, we all work differently. The spirit world, our guides, work through us differently. You can't compare yourself to others, but it is a human thing that we do. We instantly look at other people and think that's where we should be, or what do we want. It does inspire us along the way at times too, so there's something to be said for that in essence, I suppose. But yeah, for anyone that's listening to this, there's no time frame of this. This is something that you embark upon when you feel ready to do so, and if you're ready for the change, because it does bring huge change. And one thing I tell all of my students is that if you're enhancing your skills, or enhancing your sensitivity to mediumship, then it's going to bring changes, because it's going to change you. You're going to be less tolerant to certain situations. You're not going to want to be in certain energy, and it will change everything about your life. So you do have to be ready for that, but it is a blessing. In the end, it's worth it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear more about this mediumship, the school or the course that you have. But let's first talk a little bit more about, what does it look like when someone come to you, whether they have a chronic condition, or when they need guidance. What does a meeting with you looks like?
So obviously there's different ways that I will work with each client. So if someone comes to me, let's say because their own life is stressful and maybe it's bringing them illness, or their lack of motivation, or they're just not feeling with 100% within themselves, then usually that would entail me connecting with their own soul and finding a way to tell them and give them evidence of what's been and where they're at now, and also the potential for what can be achieved. And it's given them direction on that. And for that purpose, I work with them psychically, but I also, my guides, my helpers, my spirit team will come in and give that guidance as well. So it should make sense to the client at all times. Like, you shouldn't ever be saying something to the client that they just don't understand or don't connect with. So that would then help them with any chronic illnesses they have inside of them, because obviously it's all about energy, it's all about connecting with that energy and being able to lift that up again. If it's someone that's coming to me through grief, through loss, and they want to connect with their loved ones, then that's exactly what would happen. You know, their mum, dad, cousin, whoever it might be, will step forward. My mediumship, I will be able to use my mediumship to connect with them, bringing evidential mediumship, because the evidence is important, you know, for that person to know it is their mum that I'm speaking with. And the mother in the spirit side wants to come and help, wants to come and heal, wants to come and bring proof that she is there, so that the daughter or the son, whoever I'm speaking with, can move on and help heal themselves of their grief too. So that's what a mediumistic approach would be. But overall, a lot of the time what you're dealing with is both. I mean, usually most of my clients need both. And really the transformation that it brings for the client, I just feel is amazing. You know, just whether it's having that proof that their loved one is there that makes them able to get out of bed in the morning and live their life differently, or whether it's helping them psychically to recognize within themselves what they need so that they can heal their illness. Either way, it's transformational.
It's so powerful, and I'm so excited by everything that you're saying, because I know that, you know, a lot of the time people really carry on fears and expectations from people even after they passed on, and having the ability to say, actually, I'm letting this go, can really shift a huge, you know, blockage in themselves. And you reminded me of this, you know, this interview or the book I read by Anita Morjani, that she was describing her near-death experience, and saying how she, you know, she was already dying basically of cancer, and in her near-death experience, she saw herself going into the next world and connecting with the spirits of her dad, and he said, actually, first of all, we're not ready for you. It's not your time yet. But if you do choose to come down to continue, then know that all the fear that you were going through, this was what was causing the cancer. But you don't need this anymore, because we're not judging you, and we're loving you unconditionally, and all of that. And really, as you were saying, right, by understanding that we take on things that are not necessarily needed for us, when we're able to release that, then everything changes.
Yeah, I think for me, a word that I always remember and tune into is surrender. Because really, you know, we cannot control everything. We can't control other people. We can't control how someone else reacts. We can't control things that are out of our own power. So really, you've got to learn to surrender to that, so that you can just say, well, you know, my favorite thing, my mother, who's in spirit now, she always used to say to me, you know, oh, here comes Karen with her, it is what it is. And I use that all my life, you know, well, it is what it is, you know, we can't change it. So that doesn't stop someone worrying, it doesn't stop someone overthinking, because that's human as well. But if you can learn to surrender, find your way to surrender to things, that releases an awful lot. You know, a lot of people carry this burden of worrying about their siblings, worrying about, you know, what is their kid up to, and they're maybe in their 30s, you know, what the worry all the time. And sometimes you've just got to say, well, you know, okay, I can only deal with my energy, and I'll care about someone and be compassionate and understand, and I'm here, and it's an open door, but the rest isn't really up to me. And if you can kind of find a way to release those things and surrender, then, you know, it can't cure illness. I mean, there are biologically, there are illnesses that you know, that need help to be cured, but it can release an awful lot of stress and energy, which will only help.
Yeah, no, that completely resonates with me. So I'm wondering if you can share maybe a couple of examples of people that you've worked with, and help them to find that understanding of why they're still holding on to the illnesses or pain, and how it was released or improved.
Yeah, I think that there's probably thousands of people that have kind of gone through that through the years of my mediumship and working with them. So I'm not sure that like there's, you know, ones that stand out in particular, but the one thing I would say is getting someone to realize what they're carrying, from my perspective, is the biggest thing, because really some people do not understand it. They do not. They come to you and they're feeling like it can't be helped, or it's something that they don't understand why it's there. It just is. Or particularly working with people that have been through abusive situations, I would say, are predominantly difficult to begin with, because when you've been a victim of abuse in any way, whether it's emotional, physical, or anything else, it takes the victim of that a long time to understand what's been taking place because of the way it's happened. So that can be a big blockage, and I have worked with a lot of people that have been through that. So getting them to recognize that, this wasn't within your power, it wasn't you, and first of all, but getting them to realize, why are you hanging on to this? Like once they get to the realization it wasn't them, and they didn't do anything to bring that to them, it's getting them to realize that the higher power wouldn't have put that there. Because I think a lot of times we're very good at passing the responsibility away. So for example, you might say, well, this has been brought to my life for a reason. Now, that's not incorrect in the sense of what can you learn from that and how can you get past that and how can it empower you going forward. But it doesn't mean you deserved it. It doesn't mean that it was part of your path. It doesn't mean that you were supposed to go through that terrible situation. It just means that, okay, what can we gauge from this? How do we avoid this in the future? So I think taking responsibility is a big thing. And I think another thing that I hear a lot of as well is people saying, well, it was to do with my past life. It was something that happened in my past life and I can't help feeling like this is just the way I am. Well, that's not true either, because we all have our own power in this incarnation that we are going through to solve problems. So the first thing I would say is the biggest thing is getting people to recognize, well, what's in your power and what's not, and then take it from there. And that's kind of the way I tend to work with people. But once they release that, or once they recognize that, it's an amazing change. Like it's not just a little change, it's an amazing change for people, because they can surrender and move forward with it. So it's, like I said, I'm not using one example as such, but I think a lot of my work is people that have been lost in life, or another way I work is with a lot of people that have been families of someone who's committed suicide, which is, a really hard grief, because they didn't understand, or there was no warning, or, it's a terrible shock to people. And a lot of people blame themselves in some way, or tell, what else could I have done, and why didn't I see that, and how could I not have stopped that? And again, it's getting them to recognize what's in their power and what's not, but also to give them the evidence from spirit that that person is okay, and that they are there, and that they are still alive in a different form, and just helping them. I remember when my mum passed away, for a long time, even though I knew where my mum was and I was glad she was out of pain for her, I spent a long time feeling, I wanted to fix her. I wanted to fix that illness. I took her to clinics and treatments and holistic treatments and different things, because I was really obviously trying to help her, and it didn't work. And so for a bit of time afterwards, I remember feeling like all I wanted to do was fix her. And I was quite angry about it, which is a normal part of grief, even though I've got the belief that I've got, and I know exactly how things work spiritually. But you also have to come to terms of, well, again, it's not with your control, and you have to go forward. So I think it is a lot of recognition, it is a lot of self-discovery.
Yeah, it's very interesting. When my older brother passed away some years ago, and he had cancer, and I remember when he passed away, I found it really challenging to hear people talk about how he passed away from cancer, because I was saying, you can't let the cancer define him. Actually, he had such an incredible life. Of course, cancer. So, now I know that there's a lot of anger and repressed emotions and stuff that wasn't really aware of before. But I was kind of, of course, people needed to grieve, of course. But for me, it was really, let's not remember him for the cancer. Let's remember him for the life.
Yeah.
And people, it was a really big gap between how I was seeing this and how they were seeing it. And but of course, I understand that yeah, he needed to do what he needed to do, and things
Yeah.
needed to be the way that they were. um
And everyone's so individual in their grieving. You can't tell someone to grieve a certain way or how they should feel in that moment. That's about them. But I agree with you in the fact that really we need to celebrate the life of the person. It's hard when you're losing that person, but even afterwards, if you can start to think along the lines of, well, let's celebrate their life because they are still here. And I think that that's what the mediumship part brings for me anyway, and for others, that they are still here. So let's celebrate what they done here. Let's celebrate the life that they had, and for whatever amount of time that was. And another thing that sometimes makes me smile when spirit come through, and it's happened numerous times where someone in the spirit side has said to me, well, I had to get cancer before I could get to come home. And so from that perspective, it's like we're all going to have to go through something to come out of this life into the next. So there is, that when spirits say that to me, it makes me smile, because I think, well, what a great way to look at it. On this side of life, we think, this was terrible because you're watching someone in pain, or you're losing them, you're going through the grief of it. But in the spirit side, they're back home, they know where they are, and they're saying, well, I had to go through that to get here. So it just brings a little bit more of a, I suppose, a positive feel on it from their side of things.
yeah, yeah. It makes me a little bit emotional, because I'm thinking about my younger brother who died just not even a year ago, and thinking, yes, he was definitely, that was an accident that he died in, and thinking, yes, he obviously needed to go home, and just
Sometimes, especially with accidents, though, another thing that you'll hear through mediumship is that mediums will say, we're only here for a certain amount of time and it's on your life plan. And it's not necessarily something I truly believe. I feel that we all come here for as long as we can. Meaning that this temple, which is our body, that houses our soul, as long as the body's okay, we will be there. The soul is strong, the soul will be there. If accidents happen or illnesses happen, there's a lot of illnesses happening now that didn't happen before, because of the food industry, the difference in how we all live, and yourself, all of the additives and sugars and all this, and cancer's on the up, and we all know the statistics. But the spirit world can't change that. God can't change that. That's something that's human. That's something that the lifestyle that we live sometimes. So sometimes I do believe that, the soul has to go home when the body dies, or when the body is, in an accident, or when something happens to that body that it can't stay here, then the soul has to go home. That doesn't mean that the soul of the person is sad or can't accept that, because they are home. They know where they are. But again, even talking about your brother, I'm quite sure you can look at your brother's life in some respect as well and say, well, he didn't get as long as he should have here, but at the end of the day, we can celebrate, that part of him, what he did get when he was here, because we are all going to the same place. Every single one of us goes home, so we will all be reunited again at some point. And even if there's 20 years in between two passings, let's say, that 20 years is only valid in this world because we're physical, but in the spirit world, there is no time. So when you see your loved one again, even if it's been 20 years, it will be like they never left. And that is why spirit always say, go and enjoy your life, and I'll see you when you come home. But there will be no missing. It's only us that miss that.
And I totally believe in that, and I think that makes it a little bit easier, of course, then you have the everyday life and the missing and all of that. But to me, that's I really believe in what you're saying. And I wanted to ask, you said that when people come to you, say people with chronic conditions, and you're helping them see that they are spirit in a body, in a human body. What is that conversation like? How do you help them understand that actually they're really just spirits and here for a moment?
Well, the first thing that I would ask someone to become aware of is their intuition, because people use their intuition all the time. People say, "Oh, I had a hunch about that, or I had a feeling about that, or a sixth sense somehow told me that." And so the first thing I would say to someone is, "That's your spirit. That's who you are. That inner voice is you. That is the real part of you that's connected to the divine. So that part never goes away. And the reason that you've got that inner voice is because that is your sat nav in life. That is what's going to keep you on the right path. When you make a decision, maybe I shouldn't have went down that path. It didn't feel that was right for me, but I done it anyway. So then you go, right, what lessons did you learn through that? And then you got on the right path. And so that's why I kind of call it your inner sat nav, if you like, to get you through life. Now, once someone recognizes, yeah, I do have that. Yeah, I do hear that voice inside my head. Yeah, I do have that feeling. And then I can say to them, well, that part of you is that part that we're trying to get you to connect with more and more and develop that connection. Because once that connection can be developed to a higher level, then that person can connect with their higher self a lot of the time, which then enables them to heal themselves and understand that actually we are only here for like 5 minutes. In the grand scheme of things, the time that we have here on the earth is not long at all. And you hear people saying, time is short, life's short, or you never know what's going to happen. Could not be truer. We really just don't know. So I think that if people can tune into that side of themselves, then it will help them understand that actually I'm not going to waste my time on this. I'm going to surrender to this. And it helps them move forward in that way.
I love what you're saying, and I think it's interesting about the surrendering bit, because and I say to my clients a lot as well, it's that we always have that feeling that we need to do something, and if I'm not doing something, then probably I'm doing something wrong, or maybe. And actually, a lot of the time, actually not doing is probably the only thing that you can do, and find that thing. It's not just, I'm not saying sit on the sofa and that's it, but find look back. Take this as an opportunity to really to pause and just look back at what is going on in your life. How are you leading your life? What really, I'm always asking, where are the fears? And you can walk it out, and you can see how often you may be giving other people's power that's supposed to be yours, and so on. And so it's not about what can I do, like going to all the doctors and all the stuff in the world, but actually it's going inside. That's what you can do.
Yeah, and finding your peace with things. I think, like you said, it's not about just kind of sitting still and not really addressing things, but it is about sitting still in some ways, because only when you really stand still and listen to the silence, that's where you will have your answers every single time. And again, it's that the answers come from your higher self. So if you can stand in the silence, some people do it through meditation. You don't have to do it through meditation. You can just take a quiet moment. Breath work is another way to do it. If you really inhale a deep breath and kind of in through the nose, out through the mouth, if you focus on that breath, you cannot focus on anything else. It's absolutely impossible. So that's another way to bring you back to your higher self. And if you can just relax and say, look, it's okay to stand still. I don't know what direction I'm going just now, or I don't know the answers. So I am just going to sit in the silence, and I am just going to stand still for that time until I feel an answer coming, until I feel that I'm being guided into a certain direction. Because I think too often we're really raised with this attitude of, well, you're not allowed to sit still. Just get on with it. Get up and get on. Just show up. It'll be fine. And that's all good and well to kind of nourish the positivity in someone. But what it also does is it masks really the answers that are within, because it's a superficial feeling of, you've got to fake it to make it. Until you make it, you've just got to push forward. But it doesn't allow you to listen to what's going on or what your reasons are for being where you are. So I do think standing still or sitting in that silence until the answers come is another great way to surrender. It's another great way to kind of just, nourish your soul a little bit and bring that forward.
Yeah. I think just to add to that is, when you're sitting there in reflection or in silence, not to entertain that negative voice that keeps you in this victimhood story, but actually try and, park that and bring this
Yeah.
knowing that will come when you pause.
That's a great point, actually, because a lot of people do, like, the mind is there to protect you in some way. So, the mind will jump in when it's the soul you need to listen to. So if if you ask a question of yourself and say, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that, the mind will give you an answer, because the mind is there to do that. It's there to keep you, if you see, a lion walking towards you down a road, the mind's going to tell you, get out the way. The mind is there to protect you, but the mind understands the logic of things and wants to provide answers, but the soul has the answers. So it's been able to differentiate what is of your mind and what is of your soul. And negative vibes or negative kind of views on things normally come from fear. It normally comes from the mind and the fear of something, maybe even the fear of change. So the mind will throw something in there and it won't be the right thing. So it's like you say, park that. If there's something negative coming or you're staying in a kind of victimhood of something, try to park that. Just push it to the side and say, no, that is not the authentic me. So I'm going to wait and listen properly.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm curious about how did you actually get started with mediumship and recognizing that you have this ability, to communicate with spirits.
Well, I've seen spirits since I was a little girl. I mean, I used to see them, but I didn't used to know they were spirits. I used to just be able to know they were from somewhere else. That's the way I used to think, like, oh, there's a lady there in the kitchen and she's from the other place. But I never knew why I knew that. It just felt very normal to me. And it wasn't all the time. It wasn't like I was seeing them every day. It just came up now and then when I was maybe 3, 4, and then maybe up to 10. It used to happen. And my grandmother actually used to say, oh, Karen sees spirit. She knew. But it was later in life, really. I mean, I went through my teenage years picking up things for my friends, saying, oh, your grandmother's beside you, or I can hear someone saying X, Y, and Z, as a message. But again, it just felt like me. So I didn't really think, oh, there's something strange about this, or I'm a medium. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that it started happening all the time, that I would hear spirit quite consistently. And I went and spoke to a medium about it. And she said, well, because that's you're a medium. And I said, I'm not a medium. I can't do that. I was shocked. And she said, yes, you just have to develop. So I went and sat in a development circle, we call it here in Scotland, where it's like a home group, just a circle. And as soon as I sat there and felt it, I was like, oh, wow, I felt like I was home. I felt like this all makes sense now. And from that moment on, I just worked with it, developed it. That's been years and years now. And I really have been so blessed, that spirit have brought me this way and brought me forward enough to work with this.
Amazing. And tell me, you told me that there is a mediumship course or school that you have. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah, so one thing when I was starting out and doing my own development, although I went to the Arthur Findlay College, which is in London, which is a very prestigious, spiritual school, I went there and I was connected to certain teachers, and that was all fine. But aside of that, I didn't have anyone. I didn't have someone to ask questions of. I found that I had to do a lot of it myself. And at the time, I remember feeling like, once I get to a certain place in my life with my work, I want to provide this teaching for people, because I just felt like I was having to source, and I wasn't sure whether I was doing the right thing half the time. And Anyway, it took me on a journey of discovery and it all worked out fine. But I just felt like I wanted to offer people. And I think now, the way things are now, with everything online, with people being able to Google anything they want, there's a lot of misinformation out there as well about how spirit actually works. So I started a mentorship, which was primarily for me to work one-to-one with people who felt they had psychic skills or wanted to develop in some way. But now it's grown into something else. So my son is also psychic and he does soul work. He's a soul coach. He does a lot of different ways. He works a lot of different ways than I work. He doesn't sit and give people readings like I do, but he tunes in with them and does work with their soul. So him and I have now collaborated on an amazing mentorship that covers development of the soul. It covers psychic mentorship, and it also then goes over mediumship mentorship as well and development. And so you start at one level, whichever level you come in at, it's open to all different levels. And what we do is we make sure that you're on the right level and providing the foundation of knowledge and everything else and development of your soul. And then we take you through the psychic or the mediumistic development. Now, some people come and they don't want to, they don't feel like they're mediums, and that's fine, because this is the beauty of what we've done now, because it's open to everyone. So some people will come predominantly for soul therapy and soul coaching and development of themselves and understanding, and then other people will want the psychic skills side of things. So we do everything now under one mentorship, which is fantastic.
Mentorship was the word that you used, and okay, I got it. But soul coaching, that sounds very interesting. What can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Lewis Hugh, that's my son. Obviously, he was raised with this, and he was very psychic from the minute he was a baby. He was so psychic. So I always knew he would work in this environment one day. And so now he has his own business, his own clinic, his own patients, his own clients, working with their soul. He comes from a place of, he works with Buddhism, Zen, and actual the deep rooted soul therapy and soul work. So if someone comes to him with, or someone comes to me with where they need that soul development, meaning they need to understand who they are, they need to understand what's happened to them, they need to understand what spiritual development is, and the whole workings behind it. If someone comes to me that needs that, they go to him. I will get him involved with that work. But a lot of clients just come to him directly for that now, because he's grown such an amazing reputation doing that. And actually, he would be a fantastic guest for you to speak to about the healing side of things as well, because his work is all about healing too.
To me, totally fascinating. I'm really fascinated with that, because I guess it's I can really see that collaboration, I guess, between us here and our spirits or our guides, and when we can have that conversation with someone that can really help us put things in perspectives and maybe open our minds or open our understanding about things, it's a gift. It really is. It's a massive gift, and I'm very appreciative of this, for having people with disabilities like you.
I think that's the thing as well, you use the word connection, and that's exactly it. We are all connected, and we are all connected with our guides and helpers. And another thing people think is we all have a guide, and we don't. We all have a spirit team working with us all the time. And so getting people to kind of understand that there's another power that they can link into also, that's for them, solely for them, and their journey here, is quite an amazing thing to do as well. And again, with Lewis's work, a lot of the exploration of that, I feel, the way that we've done our collaboration now is because we want people to understand their own power before they understand the power of mediumship, and what it is. But like I say, people come in at different levels. So whoever, you have to apply for the mentorship. We don't tend to take on too many students, because we really want to give our all to the individual. And it's another important part of it for me anyway, and for him, that the person gets what they need. It's not like one size fits all. It just can't be that. People are at different stages in life or different stages of development. So you do have to apply for the mentorship. And then what we do is we have a look at the application and decide whether it would be right for the person. Because another thing ethically that you don't want to do is tell someone that they can do this when maybe things aren't quite right for them at that point. So we'll both work from a very ethical point of view with it as well.
Yeah. Amazing. And I already know a few people. I'm going to send them this recording so that they can consider this mentorship. So Karen, we're nearly coming to towards the end of our conversation. What message would you like to leave people watching or listening to?
Yeah, please embrace life. Sometimes I understand that just by speaking to people that some people seem to have a really hard time of it in this life, and other people seem to coast through it without too much, problems. But whatever your life is, please remember your power. Please remember that you are able to get past things. Please remember that there's always a connection for you, that there's somebody there trying to help you from the other side, that there's someone there waiting to help heal whatever is going on, and that you're never alone. And I think that, no matter how tough things get for people, there is always a connection that we can find for you, and to help you. And that the biggest thing is embracing your own power to give yourself that help first and foremost, and understand how powerful you truly are. But then after that, I would say to people, embrace your life, try to live it the best that you can. No one's perfect. The human experience is never going to be perfect. It's not supposed to be. So you're doing a good job. Whatever level you're at, you're doing a good job, and just keep going.
I love that. And I so agree that we kind of dumb it down so much, so many times, right? We forget how powerful we are. And I think for me, one thing is that I find myself saying is that we're not limited. Why are we so quick to believe that there is a very low ceiling and that's it? No, there isn't. Go out there, find it, break the limit.
Yeah, but again, I think we get taught that from an early age. Like, I know that particularly, I can only speak in Scotland, really, but our culture is really like, don't get too big for your boots. Don't, go outside the box. You can't do that. You have to, yeah, you can do anything you like. Go out and be ambitious, but just remember who you are and don't let your ego get out of control. Now, I agree with you. Nobody wants a big ego. No one wants that to be out of control. But I think in turn, what that does as children is it limits your belief. It makes you feel like, yeah, I can go and do what I want to do, but like I've got to kind of stay in the confines of this life, where in fact, every one of us has an amazing power that we've not even tapped into. I can assure most people have not even tapped into their power. And going back to what was said about change, people are frightened of change, and people are frightened of how others view them. So if you're strong, or you feel like, you know what, I'm going to get strong and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm not going to tolerate that behavior anymore off of someone. What we get frightened of is how other people view that. Oh, maybe people will think I'm a bit hard, or maybe people won't like that, or my family might not like that because it's not like me. So then we come back into our shell, when in fact, what we need to remember is your intention is all that needs to be pure. If you have pure intention of bettering your life, or pure intention of trying to help someone, or step back from a situation because it's not helping you, that's okay. And don't worry about what other people think or say.
I love hearing you speak. I agree with everything that you say, and it's so nice to hear this. And I really do hope that people listening, they really take all of these messages on board, and and if they need to hear it again, and maybe they should get in touch and have that conversation. But yeah, it's really powerful everything that you bring to the table. So thank you so much, Karen. And I want to just say that for everyone else listening, watching, of course, all of your information is in the show notes, and people are very welcome to get in touch, ask questions, or book your services. But really, I hope the main message really is that there is always another way. There is a choice, and yes, it might be scary, but it doesn't mean that it's not in your higher good. So trust, and come in and have a conversation. Thank you so much, Karen, for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.